and you will have access to both the slides and the recording after this event. On the phone with me is Dennis Clark, NextBee's product manager for DejaCode. We'll go through our slide deck here for about 10 minutes, and Dennis will demo the product for you guys. If you have any questions, please ask them in the chat, and we'll address as much as we can toward the end of the presentation. If you have any other inquiry, use the chat for that, either just to the organizer or to the entire audience. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope everybody can see my screen. Today we're going to talk about managing open source software license compliance with DejaCode. A little bit about NextBee. Our business is software component management. We help our clients tracking and discovering all the open source and third-party software that's within the product. We have products that we offer to do that, DejaCode, but also services to discover any third-party software within your product, open source or commercial. And we provide open source scanning and attribution generation tools also as open source tools. We are software provenance analysis experts. We've been in business since 2003, focusing on IP and software licensing issues since 2007. And we are active open source developer and member of the Linux Foundation. So today what we want to talk to you about is how to manage your software component data within the enterprise. We have performed many software audits on a wide range of products through all these years, and what we have seen is that most companies have already a lot of software component data in many formats, in many places within their company, but there isn't a formalized and efficient approval process for third-party code. You will see external components in version control, systems and repositories. You will have reports from internal or external software audits that you may have done in the past. You have disclosure from your supplier about open source software, and you also have contracts for all your proprietary components. So what NextBee is trying to address, and what DejaCode's purpose is to manage this software component data so it doesn't become a problem, and you can easily set up efficient workflows and policies around any use of third-party software components. With DejaCode, we have an open platform that allows you to import data from any system or any sources. You manage your data by product with efficient approval workflows, and you can automate your compliance with free and open source software obligations. DejaCode is made out of three main modules that we call the product portfolio, the component catalog, and the license library. With these three modules, you can track and report the use of open source and third-party software in your code. You can comply with obligations, making sure you comply with software licenses obligation, and you can manage your components and licenses through the organization. The product portfolio is made out of your own data. This is where you record a software inventory or development code base or a software bill of materials or product release. In this product portfolio, you can really include any original component, any third-party component, or any open source software component. We have features such as you can import data from other software audits that you may have done, or from other system that gives you this data. The component catalog is where you can catalog all your open source, third-party, and other software components. It includes a lot of metadata that you can have access to and allows your engineers, allows your co-worker within your company to have access to. And this is really where you can apply companies' policies on these components, either approve, prohibited, or requires review. So this is part of setting up comprehensive and efficient workflow for your enterprise. You can add your own data elements and your own components in that catalog, but XB also provides you with a master data from public sources that we have crawled. The license library, which is the last modules of DejaCode, is really about 900 plus software licenses that we have heavily curated. So you can have access to every license's obligation right away with a full metadata listing, and where you can apply your policy on licenses as well. So if a coworker or an engineer logs into the system and wants to use a certain software component under a certain software license, the legal group or the business unit can apply a policy, approve, prohibited, or review required on that license. And Dennis will show how to in a moment. In the same spirit as the component catalog, you can add your own license data in the license library, but we also provide you with a master data from public sources that we update every quarter. In terms of technology, DejaCode is a browser-based application written in Python. We have two deployment models. One is a SaaS, software as a service, where we manage your installation. You also have an option to install it on premises on your own server. The requirements are fairly modest. It runs on Ubuntu distros. And there are many ways to try DejaCode today. One is the 30-day trial data space, where we give you access to the full feature set of DejaCode in a shared data space. You can contact me about that later on. We have 4 subscription options for pricing that you can find on DejaCode.com. And we also have a personal edition that you can access without registration at enterprise.dejacode.com. There's no registration required. You can have access to our data and see how it looks and feels. So this is the end of our PowerPoint part. And now I'm going to give access to Dennis so he can show you the application and how it works and how you can concretely apply your policy, set up workflows, and automate attribution. Go ahead, Dennis.
Thanks, Pierre. Everyone, this is the what we call our landing page for DejaCode Enterprise, and as you can see, it briefly explains some of the items that Pierre just mentioned: our product portfolio, component catalog, license library. We'll be looking at those as well as our reporting and request tools. So let's go right ahead. One other thing I should point out is that I'm logged on as a person who has a lot of responsibility, who can do just about anything in the application. So let's take a look at our product portfolio. These are just examples. As Pierre mentioned, this part of the application is actually for your products. We have a component catalog for public components, we'll show that in a moment, and a license library for our license master data. But for, imagine this is a company called Starship, and we've got our own products. And so let's take a look at one of those. Here we have a description of the product, and we have various things about it, such as its version, its owner, a short description, the copyright, various bits of information that you can include. This is something that you create, or we help you create it. Comes with a notice, that explains what the licensing and the terms are. There's something about the owner. We'll be seeing more of this with our components and our licenses as we go through the demonstration. One of the things that is very important with this product portfolio is that as you identify all the components that are in it, whether they're open source, free proprietary, or other commercial components, is that they're all available to you, and you have a hierarchy here of those components. And one of the benefits you get from that, once that information is in, is that you can generate attribution. So we're just going to do the simplest way, but the configuration screen lets you tailor just a bit what's selected and how it's going to show on the following page. If you want to select components, restrict them to particular things, such as only open source or only this or that, you can do that with a query. You can limit the license text that are shown if a lot of licenses have choices, or you can show all of them. And then we have a thing called the license expression. We'll get to that later if there's time. But let's just start with generating attribution. And right away, it pops up this page. So this is essentially all of the components that have been identified for this product, Starship Widget Framework 9.3, and here's our company, Starship LLC. The text that you see above here basically is something that you define in the application, and we put that there. There's some information about the basic framework, which is the copyright, and then right away we get into the software components that are in it. And so you're doing your duty here by letting people know what's in my product, what have I used, what open source components are in there, and they're all listed here. And it's a simple matter of linking to them and back. And if there was a choice associated with a particular item, we can explain that to the people who need to know this. And so we can tell whether we've used that license, that one, or that one. And here we are. There's that. There may be a problem there, eh? For those of you who are familiar with that license. And we'll get back to that. We have the ability, again, to go to any of these, and we provide the license notice, as well as you can go down to the basic license, and that'll be true for all the licenses, because we give you a summary at the end of what licenses there are. For instance, the academic free license is used here, as well as, say, the GPL 3.0 and the boost. All of that information is there. As you maintain and modify your product portfolio, this page is immediately and quickly, you just regenerate it, and you've got all the information there. You don't have to manually sit down and create the HTML or whatever format you use document. And since this is HTML, you can just go ahead and save it to your local drive, and you can edit it, or you can just publish it as is. It's ready to use. And we believe that it follows a standard typically seen in large projects online. So there is your attribution generation. So let's dig a little more deeply now. In the product portfolio, one of the things you can notice as here is that we have all of these components which are under various licenses from various suppliers. And I can quickly see here that I've got some interesting licenses that might be of some use to, for instance, Dojo. Let's take a look at that component. It's got two licenses. Okay, and we can see that it's used in other places. I can see, if I look at the original component, that it's a choice, and that generally I'm going to pick the more business-friendly license, which is BSD modified. So that's one of my options with that. If we go back to our product, we'll see that maybe we need to think about this iText component. Let's and we'll come back to this item here, that little request, because there's a request associated with that, and we'll show that with our workflow. There's one other view of your components you can get from here, and this shows various things. And one of the things we've discovered, maybe we are going to get a commercial license for iText and not use that AGPL license. So we'll take a look at that in a moment as well. So here are the things that you can do and see about your product. And as we go forward, we'll get into even more complicated things that you can do. But let's continue at a somewhat higher level and see what else is available in the product. How about the component catalog? Here is a sample of our data. Currently, our master data is nearly 300,000 components, curated so that you've got the things that you see here and a lot of other information. And these components are here for your people to search on inside. Oh, can I use this? Is it okay? Is it possible that I'm going to be able to do that? And one of the things you can do as an administrator, reviewer, is to be able to put policy and information about your components. So let's just take a quick look at this one, which we had looked at before. Okay, and we've got some information in here about it. Usage policy, we're telling people not to use it because it's under a very, very strong copyleft license, and we don't want it used in our products. This is just an example, though. You could have it here, say, with what we call our yellow, which means that it requires some kind of review. And as you can see, we've got some guidance here. This field is for you as well. This is a sample. If you want to put some textual policy on your components in our component catalog, that's what you do there. And you can tell anyone who takes a look at this what's going on. And this is a way of your keeping track of the kinds of decisions that you make on open source and free proprietary components in your organization. And so that information is there. So there's the notice that comes from the supplier for that component, who it's from, iText PDF, and what the licenses are. And it mentions that you can buy it if you like, get a commercial option. It shows where it's currently being used, and you already knew that. And it shows where you got it, where you downloaded it from, and it shows if there are any requests pending on that. Again, I'll come back to that. So we have a couple of versions of that. If we go back to our component list, let's take a look at this one. This is an older version of iText. It frequently ships with popular open source components like Eclipse. And if you'll notice that we tell you where you can find this one. And this one is under a couple of relatively friendly licenses, including MPL 1.1, which I'm sure most of you have seen before. And it mentions who the owner is. Again, they still have the rights to it, but this older version is under a choice of one of these two licenses. And this sort of leads us right into our license library. Again, you can put guidance on licenses here. I don't show any on this particular one, but if there's anything that people really need to know, like you need permission to use this, there's your opportunity. And so I can look at more about this license by going into our license library. And here we see that it has obligations No restrictions. It's a very open source license policies, and there's some additional information about it. We'll show some other licenses that have restrictions. These are the 4 categories that we think make sense to show people when, just do that for a moment so you get an overview, so that it helps people understand, what do I need to think about when I'm looking at a license? Okay, and so these are some of the more common things you come across. Attribution requirements, source redistribution, although the requirements are kind of light for MPL 1.1, and we can go right to that section here. Notice that we've annotated the parts of the text that are really important, at least from our point of view. You can add annotations too, if you like. It's simply a matter, as an administrator, you highlight the text you want, and you can even assign a tag as an associated license tag, as we call it, to that license. So if I, as you can see, it explains exactly here, any modification that you make must be redistributable. So we've got that information here. Everything you see here is customizable. The names of these groups, we think they're pretty good, but you can change that. The names of the tags, the text that accompanies the tag, all of these are things that you can change if you like, and you can add additional ones. By default, we only show the ones that have been checked, i.e. yes, but these are the possibilities, just to give you a quick overview of the kinds of things you might come across, that, and I'll show you some examples of these momentarily. But but for this particular license, I'm learning that this component, iText, if I choose that license, is actually a pretty business-friendly license. And so if I look at the essentials of that, and this one does not have a usage policy assigned on it, but you certainly could, and you could put, say, a green or a yellow on it to indicate to the people in your organization how they can make use of that. So we've done that. Let's go back to our component catalog. And here we are. So again, one of the other things you'll notice that when I searched for a component, I saw all the versions of it. We keep multiple versions. We have many versions of some components. Again, this is sample data, so we wanted to show you that. And if I want to go back to the regular list, here it is. There are a number of ways I can sort through the component catalog. I can go by the keywords. These are things that you can add and take away too. We have a lot of keywords. And it's different ways of looking for that information. And you can also check by, I just want to see all the preferred ones, the ones that are green. And this is how you communicate to the people who are using these components in your company that it's okay. You don't even need approval, but just follow this, and that's what you can use. But you may also have some where you want to make sure that people are using it properly. You want to make sure they're not modifying it, or if they do, they follow the rules. You want to make sure that the way they link it and the way they use it isn't contaminating proprietary code. So these are the kinds of things that you would put a usage policy of restricted on. And then there are the ones that just don't work for your business model. And so these could be licenses that have, for instance, a network redistribution thing, so that all you have to do is put it on a network, and suddenly you have copyleft requirements. So those are the kinds of licenses, or maybe they don't allow commercial use. That's the kind of thing that you might show here in for components like that. So we have prohibited components. It's possible that someone might want to look sort by language. We have, obviously, that's one of the things frequently people want to know right away, because it could have a huge impact on the deployment implications, and especially when you're assembling and building your final product. So you may want to know right away what the language is going to be. And you can look for components under particular licenses. And again, we have a large library of licenses. We'll look at that one more time in just a moment. And or you could be looking for particular owners. Okay, so for instance, I could find out if we have any components from Microsoft, and these are components that reference or are owned by Microsoft or other popular companies, and so we have information about those as well. So the we have, for instance, a breakdown of the Qt or Qt product here, which with some information about its license and licenses and the various things. So these are the kinds of things you can find in our component catalog. We provide master data, but you can provide your own components as well. Anything that you think is useful to your company and that you're using a lot, you can add those. So that information is there. Here's our license library. If I'm, say for instance, logged on as an engineer, and I've gone to the license library. Now, I only have query capability. I may want to know if a license that I've just found on a component that I'd like to use is okay with my company, and do I have any information about it? So for instance, I might have discovered that it's this license, and I might look at a few just to make sure, but this is what Oracle calls it. So I was able to find that license without too much difficulty, and I can see that it's used in a number of popular products, and it's some information about it. Gee, nobody put a usage policy on it yet, but I'll perhaps that should have been done by the reviewer, but that can be done as well. If I look at the text, I'll see that, ooh, man, how am I going to read all that? Well, we help you out. I've got the requirements here, and I can find out what's really important about that license. And I notice, whoa, it's got some restrictions, including this one, the platform deployment restriction. I'm sure you've run across this before, many of you. And this is the one about general purpose desktop computers. And it explains exactly what that means in the context of this license, the one currently being used, the most recent one you'll find on Oracle. There are many Sun licenses, which we have in this license library, that have the variants of this sort of thing over time. And you can also see that there are other restrictions, like prohibited nuclear, that kind of thing. And you can see that there are the usual things like warranty disclaimer, export controls. Those usually appear in Oracle licenses. And so those are the things I have to think about before I decide that I want to use something in one of my products. And again, we have this available here. These are the tags that we're currently using. These are the ones that we've defined to help people understand your licenses or the licenses that are in our library. And you can move them around, resequence them. You can add policy tags saying that you could just create one that says get approval. If you could just have that right there on the license if you wanted. That would be one way. Or just say who to contact, or put something about it that indicates the policy you have about any component under that license. So those are some of your capabilities there. We'll come back to our engineer in a little bit. Let's go back to my reviewer who's logged on in a different browser. Okay, so one of the things I showed you, and along the way, is a hierarchy and a list of subcomponents for this particular product, Starship Widget Framework 9.3. And as we said, there might be some issues around some of these. So for instance, if I were to look at the one for UX Media, which is available under GPL3 or a commercial option, let's see if there's a request for that. So so Philippe has entered a request because he wants to use that component. And he's put some information about it. And he said that his deployment model is internal use. He's only going to use it internally. And this one is in process right now. As a reviewer, I probably could say something like, add a comment. Internal use, checking with legal, something like that. And so there you have it. Even though this particular component is under a strong copyleft license, if we're only using it and not building it into the final product, it's probably just fine. It all depends on your company policy and how you interpret these licenses, but that's the point of this request, is that we have it there. One of the other things I wanted to point out about the request, let's go back to being an engineer. Okay, so suppose we'll just take a simple one that's got the little yellow on it. And suppose, and there are all the different versions of it, and suppose I want to use this, and it says that it's restricted. Let me pull that component up. Okay, now, I'm considering using this in my product. That's what we're talking about right now. And I can go to one of these. These are our requests. I'm going to show you an overview of the request in a moment, but let's just take it from the point of view that somebody that needs to get something started. And so the first one they get is an open source use request. And I'm going to say that I'm using it in one of these products. And I can indicate the project that I'm working on, the purpose of the component, why I need it, how am I going to use it. Now, as I go through this, you'll notice that we've got these labels. This tells me whether it's required or not. One of the things that we do is we prompt the requester with what each field means. I'm sure all of you have seen and or created forms like this in your organization. Everything you see here is completely configurable. Completely. You can name all the things that you want people to do. This can be as brief or as complex as you require for your business purposes. And at the end of it, they can submit it. And we can tell them you forgot a required field. And at that point, if I submit that, it goes off into our workflow system, and it will appear for a reviewer to take a look at, who is probably going to tell me I didn't give them enough information. So anyway, but that's the point of my of this. And so if I'm a reviewer and I'm looking at current requests, I can see that there has been a recent open source use request, the one that we just looked at. And it's our form, and it's got all the fields that are in there. And I can comment on it, just like the one. You can create the request as generic or as specific as you like that you need for your organization. These are samples that we provide. And we think these are the typical kinds of workflow things that are appropriate for DejaCode. Okay, so they've found a component and they'd like to put it in the catalog, and because we'd like to get that information out to everyone, and we're going to start using it. Okay, so not everyone can put new data into the catalog. And or we can indicate, for instance, that we think there's an improvement or a correction that needs to be made. So those are some of the things that you could do. And you can see that I can go right ahead and add a request from here, or in the case of the component that I was looking at, when I'm on the component, I can select it so that it connects it with that. And so we've got, again, a variety of requests that you can use in your company. Okay, so we've looked at that. I want to make sure we cover all the basic things, and then Pierre will remind me if I've missed anything really interesting. We have reports. Once again, we provide master reports, but we have a reporting tool that understands our data model and guides you through it. You don't have to understand SQL or the PostgreSQL database. You don't have to know about all that. You just need to understand how to follow a few clicks and create templates to create your report. And we can help you with that as well, of course, to get exactly the reports you want. Suppose you want to know, as someone who's managing the system, has anyone created or modified any components? Or we also have a similar one for licenses lately. And to make this just a tiny bit more interesting, let's do that. And again, this is all configurable. I didn't write code to do this. I used our application to create this report. And it provides that capability. Not only that, but it is an excellent tool for getting data out of DejaCode. So we can export this in your favorite format. HTML, JSON, XLS, or a doc. And for instance, particularly if you export this, as you can see, it's a tabular report, and get this into a spreadsheet, you can resort it and filter it the way that is needed for anything else that you want. So you can get data out of the system. The columns you see here are the ones that I selected for the report. All of the various fields on our component and license data, and also we have, this has connections with the license data as well, and things about the owner are all available, and they're all available to be exported in the reports. And you can define what reports you're going to run as an administrator and which ones are available to your users. And those little parameters that I was playing with, you can decide which ones they can change and which ones they can't change. And so you have a lot of control about the kind of information that people can get using these reports. And it gives, for instance, if you participate in the SPDX format for documenting your products, we have a cross-reference of our license library with the SPDX license list, and that information is available too, and how to get to it. And again, there are a number of ways to do that. You can also get to it from here, right? You can find just the ones that, again, that's what these facets are for. One thing I wanted to point out as well regarding how you can customize the system is that the columns you're seeing here are you can decide whether you want to show them or not. The usage policy, and there's help for people to understand just what it is we're doing. As a license category, we provide them. The labels that we put on our category are, we think, good, common, standard industry expressions, but if you want to modify any of those, you're welcome to do that. We chose 3 of what you've seen quite a bit of by now, license tags, as we call them, that we think are of particular interest. So it's the things you want to highlight right away. So for instance, and you can even restrict the display to those. And of course, typically, if something has source redistribution requirement, it's one that usually you need approval. You want to make sure that people are following the rules when they use those kinds of licenses. And also, if it's important to your company, you're going to really want to know what licenses have network redistribution terms. That is, if you put it on a network, you are effectively saying you're going to redistribute that code or make it available. So we highlight those licenses as well. Pierre. What have I left out?
I think you've been through most of the interesting thing in our application.
Do I have questions?
There were some questions about how do you pre-populate the product portfolio? Can I use data from the component catalog or use my own? I replied in the chat that you can obviously add data from the component catalog to create a product, and you can also add your own. Now, if anybody else has any other questions, Dennis, you can show us how to quickly add data in a product. Yes, thank you. So this is the admin part of the application, everybody. And this is where you create a product. And go ahead, Dennis.
Sure. For instance, I could, if I've concluded that I have yet another component to add to this, I could do that here. And I can do that a number of ways. I can key one in and see if it finds it, or I can search. Now, again, we're only looking at a small sample of our components. But I could, for instance, decide I'm going to use that component. And there we have it. And there are, I can say whether it's deployed or not. I can choose the license that I'm going to use in the context of this product. Those are the licenses available, and you know how we mentioned you have a license choice. Here I'm saying which license am I going to use in the context of using it in this product. And I may have the authority to approve it or not. Again, I'm an administrator right now. I'm putting this information in. There are a number of ways to get the data in. I'll show you a few more. And I might want to indicate, for instance, where it's going to be in my code base. Something like that. And I might want to say some additional stuff about it. Okay, so for instance, I might want to say note license choice. Yeah, just the kind of things that you might want to say about that. And now, that's going to do something very interesting to this product, because it actually, the component that I just chose has its own hierarchy. And if I were to go to that, you would see that. It's a sample of what we have in our component catalog. And so no one just uses the entire Qt library. You use parts of it. So one of the things you might want to do additionally is to indicate that's, maybe not in the scope of this demo, but you could actually show what parts of the library you're using inside your product. So that's some of your capability there. If I were to go to our component catalog here as an administrator and just go to what we call our Browse Components screen, you'll see that we have something called Component Import. And we, NextB, can help you with this. Frequently, you're taking the results of an audit, some analysis you've done so that you have a spreadsheet. There's a template you can download to help you do that, to get the data prepared. And once you've got that, and we tell you what the different columns are and how to use them, you can take that. So you don't have to add the component completely manually through our UI. If you've got a lot of data, you can go ahead and provide that, and we provide editing and error messages and warnings and so forth. Again, let's not take too long on that. If the other thing that, let's just do a very quick overview of the overall administrative dashboard. Shortcuts to all the component import things that I just mentioned to you. You can maintain your users. Here's where you maintain the various attributes and characteristics of licenses of components that we talked about. Here's where you can define the reports that you have. And we talked about where you can define your own request templates. in case you want to have a particular form for people to use our workflow. That information is here. And so, for instance, just one final thing, if I wanted to add a new license, that's right here. And again, we have help on the fields to guide you and information about how we do things. And so you can put a new license in and configure it with all those wonderful tags we just showed you. So that is available to you here. So there we have it. I think we're getting close to wrap-up time. Pierre, is there another question for me?
Yes, there's a question about component curation. How do you curate component catalog? Do you do a direct inspection of each component, or is it a combination of getting the information from the vendor without direct inspection of the component? Maybe you can explain our automated and human-curated approach.
Sure. So if I'm taking a look at one of these, this component is a reasonably well component. It's probably something that we found in an audit, or it's a component that we got through data mining. We several 100,000 components. Many of these were done by mining popular component sites, SourceForge, GitHub, etc. And we've selected them, and we get the information that we can, such as keywords, for instance, the keywords that we show. A lot of that comes from us mapping from that site. The licenses, we have our license detection thing. That's part of our own tools that we use at NextBee to figure out what the license should be. And typically what we'll do is that we'll give it a status that will indicate that someone needs to take a look. And as you can see, we have a number of typical statuses that you might expect for that process. And we determine whether or not it's ready for users to see. You can determine whether a component is of the quality that you want your users to see, or if it doesn't have enough information. And what we do is automatically compute what we call a completion level. There are a number of things that you want to know about a component, and we weight them. I mean, some of them are really important, like the notice, the copyright, the home page, who owns it, do we have the actual file, the original that is findable over and over again for this particular component, as opposed to just a vague component name. So once we have all that information, and once we see that the completion level is at a certain point, we assign it a curation level. And again, that's done manually. It's done by our staff. It's done by people like me, and we do that, and we have people on board to review components. And so this is a constant process where we look at the components and upgrade them. And that's the kind of data that we ship every quarter, is improved component data and new components. And we do that by taking a look at that. We use our queries and reports to help us do this. One of the things we have available is that any of the queries that are used for reports can also be used for instance, for looking at our component catalog and checking them over. And so, and again, you can define your own queries. So, and then we have ours too that we use for this purpose, so that we can review what's in our catalog. And lots of filters, lots of ways to look at what's going on. We can even look at the master data space. Again, I'm an administrator. That allows me to see the master data. Okay, anything else, Pierre?
Not that I see. I think we can wrap up. If anyone has another question, you can email us or contact us anytime. We will send you the link to the webinar and the slides within 24 hours. And I want to thank you all for attending. Thank you very much, and have a great day.